Okay, good evening, councillors, ladies and gentlemen, to this evening's council meeting. I'd just like to remind everyone there is no talking in the council apart from the councillors and the officer speaking at the time. Otherwise, it makes it very difficult for the clerk to record the minutes. Okay, thank you. I would like to thank the councillors who supported me and attended the Mayor's Deputy ceremony, and especially the speakers at the buffet afterwards. The funeral of the Lord Warden was held on Monday the 21st at Walmer Castle. Lord Boyce was a very hands-on Lord Warden, and I remember his inauguration at Dover College on a beautiful sunny day. My fondest memory of him is sitting upstairs in the medieval centre on the quay one Sunday afternoon and talking with the committee, who he supported. Councillor Paul Carter has asked me to say on his behalf that he is upset that his use of an analogy at last month's council meeting caused any concern to members of the public. He agrees it was not appropriate and will not repeat its use. Thank you. So, item 2, approval for apologies of absence.
Apologies, Sophie.
Can I just raise a point of order?
Yeah.
I understand that Councillor Carter, Paul Carter, has decided to take a sabbatical for 2 months till January, and that puts particularly the Finance and General Purposes Committee in a somewhat awkward position because he
hasn't notified me.
He hasn't?
No, he hasn't notified me.
He hasn't?
No.
Right. So
He's changed his mind then.
maybe he has changed his mind.
Right, so?
Yeah.
But he's not here.
No.
I think he's told a few councillors that...
I spoke to him today, actually, but he didn't say anything.
He didn't?
No.
Right.
I'm having a meeting with him tomorrow night, so...
Okay, well, I'll leave what I was going to say.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. So we've got approval for apologies for absence.
We've had apologies from Councillor Paul Carter, Deputy Mayor, due to work commitment. Apologies from Councillor Danielle Carter due to a work commitment, and Councillor Anne Fox due to a family commitment.
Yeah. You happy with that? No. Thank you. Item 3. Declaration of disclosable pecuniary interest and other significant interests. Right. Item 4. Minutes. 1. To approve the minutes of the quarterly meeting held of Sandwich Town Council held on 31st of October 2022, and to consider any matters arising from those minutes not covered elsewhere on this agenda. Attachment 1. Approve the minutes. I need someone to approve.
Approval.
Approve and second it. Okay, all in favour of approving the minutes? Got one abstention. 2. To approve the minutes of the Planning Committee held on the 9th of November 2022, and to consider any matters arising from those minutes not covered elsewhere on this agenda. Attachment 2.
Move.
Do we have a seconder?
Second.
Okay. All in favour? Good. 4. To approve the minutes of the Finance and General Purposes Committee on the 21st of November 2022, and to consider any matters arising from those minutes not covered elsewhere on this agenda. Attachment 4. Approve it. Do you have a seconder? Did I miss that one out?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Go back to 3. To approve the minutes of the Heritage and Townscape Committee held on 16th of November 2022, and to consider any matters arising from those minutes not covered elsewhere on this agenda. You approve it? Seconder? All in favour? Thank you. So 4. Okay. To approve the minutes of the Finance and General Purposes Committee meeting held on the 21st of November 2022, and to consider any matters arising from those minutes not covered elsewhere on this agenda. Attachment 4. You proposal, seconder? All in favour, thank you. 5. Payment schedules. 1. To receive and note the payments for mid-November totaling £25,528.40. Those payments which are not supported by a minute reference number have been authorised by the Chief Executive Facilities Manager as they fall within Officer delegated powers of expenditure.
Move.
The second, all in favour? Abstentions. Okay. 2. To receive and approve the schedule of payments for November totaling £8,346 and 6 pence.
Move.
Mover. You've got a second now? All in favour? 3 against. 3 abstentions rather. 3 abstentions. 3. Council to confirm nomination of Councillor Franklin and Councillor Sampson to authorise any November payment schedule on bank loan.
Move.
Okay. All in favour? Okay. 4. Council to confirm nomination of authorised signatories to authorise mid-December payment schedules on bank line. I think that's because of the way the bank works out. Got a proposer, second, don't you? All in favour of that? Lovely, thank you. Thank you. Oh, I think Councillor Freeman's one.
No, you can nominate someone, don't you?
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, I nominate Councillor Franklin and Councillor Sanson.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, yeah. But, what she missed them all? More sharp. Thank you. Right. Public participation. Item 6. Public request to speak. A 15-minute session is set aside at this stage of the meeting to enable members of the public to speak. Written notice of the desire to exercise the right to speak and of the topic to be addressed must be given to the Chief Executive prior to 9 a.m. on Wednesday before the meeting. Christina Glynn. Oh, we know that person.
Good evening. Until recently, I've been trying to understand how the council works by pursuing Sandwich Town Council's Standing Order 5J reviews, otherwise known as the SO5Js. However, I had completely overlooked STC responsibilities as the sole trustee and administrator of the Tollbridge Fund. I was jarred into this realisation when I attended the finance meetings last week and found that the STBF finance meeting could not proceed. Not only was it incorrect, but none of the members summoned to the meeting were in attendance. This led me to start reviewing STBF documents, whereupon I found 1. There are no committees listed on the council website for the Tollbridge Fund, so perhaps they don't exist. 2. The STBF statement of purpose is out of date, stating that the Guildhall is leased by STC from DDC, whereas the accounts state that the Guildhall transferred to the STBF with effect from April 2021. 3. The STBF standing orders appear to be based on STC standing orders, yet the legal entities are very different. The STBF SO5Cs are based on STC's SO5Js, which is questionable in itself. For example, the STBF does not employ staff according to the accounts, so why does it require employment policies and procedures? Further, despite the standing orders stating that the full list of requirements will be included in the business of the annual meeting, the vast majority of the items were not included in the agenda at that meeting in May and have not been listed on any STBF agenda since. They appear to have been ignored altogether. If this is how STC conducts itself in discharging its duties as the trustee and administrator of the STBF, one has to wonder if the trust is in safe hands. The Tollbridge Fund Statement of Purpose states that a clear statement of policy on investment strategy on all classes of assets should be reviewed at least annually by the trustee to help ensure a reasonable income with capital growth, and adds that reviews by the trustee of performance of the said assets shall take place at least quarterly to ensure security of capital. It further states that the trustee will seek to ensure that capital invested shall increase, at least exceeding the current annual rate of inflation. Now that's very laudable, But how does it equate with subsidising the Guildhall beyond the level of anticipated income from the fund as indicated by the draft budget? If the Guildhall is a loss-making asset that swallows up all the income from other investments and erodes the capital within the fund, then perhaps serious consideration should be given to divesting it from the trust fund. And lastly, the STBF finance meeting that was to have taken place on 21st of November had draft budgets on the agenda, but those agenda items have not been brought forward to the agenda for tonight's meeting. So where are they? The STC Finance and General Purpose Committee resolved to refer the STC account to a working group, but that resolution was within the STC meeting, not the STBF meeting that didn't take place. Speaking as a member of the public, it is vanishing acts such as this, coupled with out-of-date and missing information on the website, and an apparent unwillingness to produce and or review various documents listed under STC SO5J and STBF SO5C that undermines confidence in the council and would be best addressed as a priority. Thank you.
Mr. Terry Hopper, the second speaker. Yeah, where is he? Standing there.
Mayor, councillors, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Terry Hopper. I've been a resident of Sandwich for 63 years. I'm also a former trustee of the Sports Centre. I come to you today to seek your support in preventing the changes of the allocation of land adjacent to Sandwich Technical School, which has been designated SAP 21 in the local plan. Many of you know that this land was designated for provision of sports and leisure facilities in the previous plan of 2010. And we, the former trustees of the Sports Centre, have worked with Dover District Council to produce plans for a facility that will help provide for the needs of all our community, young and old. We continued to communicate with the planning officers throughout the Regulation 18 draft process and were assured by DDC that the land allocation remained the same. However, we now find at the Regulation 19 stage that DDC seek to change the allocation in favour of expanding the school. Most of you will be aware that the Sports Centre is now in the hands of the school, who forced control from the trustees through a legal battle that the trustees could not afford to fight. And despite taking control of a facility worth over £1.5 million, the school refused to make any commitment to provide community access in the future. And the Sports Centre was not just bricks and mortar. It represented tens of thousands of hours of work and effort freely given by members of our community who worked towards its financing, construction and the running of it over the last 30 years. And when the school snatched it away, it didn't just snatch it away from the trustees, it snatched it away from all of you in this room, and it snatched it away from all the residents you represent. And so it is too, or it would appear, with the adjacent land. Not content with taking control of £1.5 million community and £1.5 million community building, the school is now trying to snatch away yet another community asset. And why is the school expansion needed? Has our community doubled in size since I was school age? It hasn't, but the size of the school has. And I would argue that this is because the populations of Deal, Dover and Thanet have expanded greatly, and that the provision of school places in those areas has not kept pace with the demand. And so the residents of Sandwich will be forced to lose a valuable community space for a need that occurs in other communities. I'm reminded of DDC's plan to put a supermarket on our car park to meet an identified need in Deal. Can you imagine the loss and damage that would have caused had they been successful? This current proposal is much the same. It will result in the loss of what has the potential to be a significant asset for the future of our town, both in terms of amenity and in terms of the future physical and mental well-being of our community. So I urge you to do all that is within your power to prevent this reallocation and its subsequent loss to the community.
Mr. Ian Black.
I'm not allowed to speak, it's okay. We're not allowed to until we pass those on.
Thank you, Mr. Black.
Mr. Mayor, councillors and taxpayers, and officer, of course, I do apologise. I'm a Sandwich resident who's concerned about the public's right to speak at these meetings. I really welcome the new public right to speak policy. It's certainly a great improvement on what occurred before. And for detailed clarity, though, I'll issue some documents later on which make specific references to both the standing orders and the public participation policy, as the two are intimately linked. These two papers need to be taken together because they interact on many points. First, notice of a desire to speak. This should, in my view, include Saturdays as a working day, just as the standing orders do for notice of a meeting, the new standing orders. The shorter time period of 2 working days for notification is welcome, rather than the current 5. It reflects reality. Second, the time allocated for each individual to speak is 3 minutes. Well, that's fine for a fast talker like myself, but it's not for all. I suggest that at the chair's discretion, up to 5 minutes be allowed. The chair can already extend the public session beyond 15 minutes. I also suggest that the 3-light warning system be adopted instead of a kitchen timer, which was so insulting and rude. Third, the standing order says only items already on the agenda can be raised in the public right to speak. What if there is a legitimate local issue not on the agenda, which a local taxpayer might want to raise, e.g. aircraft noise from a proposed new airstrip nearby? I suggest the issues need to be relevant, but not necessarily already on the agenda. Finally, excluding the right to participate, the council may do so if it votes to do so for a legitimate reason, for example, some financial matters, but it needs to vote. There should be a specific clause, I suggest, to state that single item agendas and extraordinary meetings are subject to the general right to speak, not as we've had in some cases with no legal basis and not even the National Association of Local Council endorsement. There is a lot of good progress here, but let's make it a little bit better.
Thank you, Mr. Black.
Right.
Mr Mayor?
No, we don't speak, they just speak.
I just wanted to ask Mr Black a question.
No, we don't.
Well, we will.
You can ask him
we
after the
pass these
meeting.
standing
You can ask him after the meeting, councillor. So Mr. Black will be here.
That's a copy of the Mr. Mayor, that's a copy. Colin, could you take one copy and pass the rest around, please? That's the linking the SOs and the right to speak. Thank you.
Oh, Mr. Sampson.
One sec. So yeah, there was a lot I was going to say tonight from members of the local community, especially the events community. But after your comments, Mr Mayor, I'm satisfied that the Deputy Mayor has finally apologised for comments made at the previous meeting, which I'm not going to repeat here and now.
Thank you.
But can I please ask this apology is communicated post-haste to the 50th Festival, Sandwich Community Events Association and Killer 10 Records, please.
Okay, thank you.
Didn't apologise. Said it wouldn't happen again, which is fine.
Councillors, no speaking.
It wasn't councillor speaking, I think.
No, but I did ask at the start of the meeting there would be no speaking in the council. And if you speak to me, we speak to the officers.
But I wasn't speaking. It was behind me. It was me, sorry.
Okay, thank you. Right, where are we? Item 7, report to the District Council on matters directly related to Sandwich. Okay, Councillor Chandler, please. Okay, thank you, Sue.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Good evening, councillors. So for those members of the public who may not know, my name is Chandra and I'm your Kent County Councillor, so I have a report from the County Council, Mr Mayor. Just 2 very different things to report tonight. You may well have seen that earlier this month, 14th of this month to be precise, the leader of Kent County Council joined with the leader of Hampshire County Council, writing to the Prime Minister, the Chancellor and Secretary of State to highlight the financial circumstances in which both those extremely large county councils found themselves and the challenges that they would have in providing a budget going forwards that actually met the requirements of the services that the county council has to deliver in the financial envelope that was currently available. Since then we've had the Chancellor's Autumn Statement, which has of course addressed the adult social services landscape to some degree, but I just wanted to let councillors know that the challenge around the budgets for the next 3 years for the County Council remain very high, that means that in some instances difficult decisions are having to be taken primarily around people services, so that's adult social services and children's social services, which have seen an unprecedented rise in both demand but also in cost, alongside the other cost of living issues that are with us at the moment. Those costs have risen proportionately as well. On a very different subject, a Plan B summit was held at the showground. No, it wasn't actually. I'm lying. It was held virtually, which enabled a lot more delegates to attend to review Kent's Plan B, which has, as most people will be aware, been an extremely successful plan to encourage pollinators across Kent in every way possible. And there have been some local beneficiaries of grants that are associated with that. And anybody who is interested can receive a monthly newsletter from Plan B, which covers a huge range of environmental issues across the county. And I know locally there will be several councillors who are interested in those particular issues. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Do you want to pick that up? It is was tonight. Item 7. Report on the District Council matter directly to Sound. Councillor Friend.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've only got one item to raise tonight, and that is the Regulation 19 consultation that we're in at the moment on the new Derby District Council local plan. We are having an extraordinary meeting about it at Sandwich Town Council on Wednesday evening, but you've got up until the 9th of December at 5 o'clock to get your submissions in. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Item 9. Updates from councillors on meetings that they have attended as nominated representatives of the council. Verbal updates can only be noted. Does anyone get Councillor Sands?
Yep. So as per usual, Christmas lights. So most of the lights have now been put up around the town, along with these rather inventive stars which have been created by Simon Mallet, one of our volunteers, who did a very good job. So we're getting ready for the 3rd of December switch on, so that's this coming Saturday. The committee wanted to express a big thank you to Dover District for the community grant, which has been greatly received. The event itself, so on Saturday, is going to have activities throughout the day starting from 10 o'clock. There's carnival rides, attractions and stalls. There's a Christmas jumper parade, and the switch on is at 7 o'clock. There'll be a parade from the quay just before. One thing the committee would like me to express is they're really desperate for marshals, not just for setup, but also for just the parade itself, just to make sure it can proceed safely throughout the town. So anybody here today, it's like your assistance on the night would be greatly appreciated, and so we can make sure the event goes with no hitch. If you want to get in touch, then use the Lights Facebook page. It's the easiest way to get in touch. And then lastly, the Lights Committee would like to invite you to join us for the switch on, Mr. Mayor, with some local heroes.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. Urgent matters. 10. Finances. To receive and note that it's it's one of their nights, isn't it? 10. Finances. To receive and note the Sandwich Town Council statement of account as at 31st of October 2022. Income and expenditure, budget and petty cash. Attachment 7A, 7B and 7C. Seconder? All in favour? Oh, we've got some 4 abstentions. Okay. Okay. 11. Co-option to council to receive and consider a report from the chief executive regarding co-option to the council. Attachment 8A and 8B. Councillor?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've read the new the recommendations last council meeting was to have it rewritten or redrafted. The chief executive has done an amazing job. This is very short staff at the moment with the council, so I recommend that the new vacancy and the new appraisal is approved by this council this evening. That's my proposal.
Do you have a second for that?
I was second.
Councillor, did you want to speak, Councillor?
I'm allowed.
Yeah, well, you put your hand up, I know it's you.
Did I put my hand up? I thought I just said, can I speak? I just wanted to say that can we thank all the staff, because I know now at the moment that everybody's joining in together. It's not just the chief executive officer.
Yeah. Okay. Are we all in favour of this recommendation? Okay. 12. Boundary Commission to receive and consider a report from the chief executive in relation to the redrawing of the constituency boundary line. Attachment 9.
Yeah, so this is something that's actually been concerning me quite a bit, and I think Sandwich Town Council needs to actually put something into the Boundary Commission. The constituency, proposed constituency of Herne Bay and Sandwich, it's actually quite silly. It was going to be called West Thanet, and then we're going to have East Thanet, which would be significantly smaller. I've listed a couple of things we can include. So Sandwich has been part of the South Thanet constituency since it was created in 1983. And if you look at the current boundaries of North and South Thanet, essentially what's just happened is just an internal redrawing for the most part. That's pretty much all that's happened. There's not really that many community links between Sandwich and Herne Bay, I would say. Nowhere near to the level that we have between like Sandwich and Broadstairs, Ramsgate, etc. And Cliftonville. Yeah, so the other thing as well, if you have Herne Bay and Sandwich, you know, presently South Thanet we have Dover District Council, which covers this area here, Sandwich, and then Thanet District Council covers the rest of the constituency. This proposed constituency would have those two plus Canterbury City Council, which sod that. That's really quite silly. So yeah, if we can include those points in the reply from the Town Council, and if anybody's got any others they'd like to make as well, I think we should go ahead with that.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Sandwich. Prior to the Sandwich or Thanet South, we were part of the Dover Deal constituency, so I think we should return back to the Dover Deal and we'd be one district council, wouldn't we? Councillor Barnes.
Yeah. Just to say I'm in complete agreement with Councillor Sampson.
Well, Councillor.
Yes, I'm in agreement as well. I would express some sympathy with the Boundary Commission in almost an impossible task of trying to identify an area with the right number of voters, roughly, compared to another area with the right number of voters, and somehow to cobble together an identifiable community. And it's my personal view that we should eventually abandon the mythology that we all hold, that there is a local area which is identifiable as a community, which has one MP who somehow identifies with that area. I think it's proved impossible, and this is a very good example of it, that you can no longer do it. And I see it as an argument for adopting proportional representation, with only a small role for what is called a local MP relating to a local community. As an example, you could criticise or not criticise our own MP, who doesn't live in this constituency, but maybe he's a very good MP. So I think we need to forget this myth that an MP is better because he or she lives within an identified community.
Yeah, Councillor Morgan.
Just wanted to support what Councillor Sampson. Just a minor correction. The electoral boundary was changed in 1987. So in 1983, our MP was Peter Rees and Bowen Deal.
Yeah.
And in 87, it changed to Jonathan Aikins, South Canada.
I think Peter Rees actually lived in Fisher Street, didn't he?
He did, yes.
So we had a local MP living in Fisher Street. Anyone else? Any other comments? So we want to, what do we want to do? Go into Dover constituents? We don't want this new constituency, do we really?
I would suggest we, I would say the best chance to try and get the best for Sandwich would essentially say we want to be the existing boundaries roughly. But we could also include that we would prefer the Dover district area. But as long as those key points just saying how the present proposal of Herne and Sandwich just doesn't work along some of the lines that we talked about today would be good. I'm happy to assist staff in doing a response.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Councillor. Right.
Second.
Oh yeah, you've got for a seconder? Yeah.
I second that, yeah.
Yeah, all in favour that we
Is
draft
that
that?
what we're going to put on our
Yeah.
response? Okay.
Yeah.
And we'll do an individual response as well, I think.
No.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Non-urgent matters. 13. Standing orders to receive and consider updated and revised standing orders from the working group. Attachment 10.
Nice.
Councillor Wallace.
Yeah. Thank you. The working group was myself, Councillor Gray, Mr Mayor and the Chief Executive. We were delegated to look at this, and it's really just tidying up the documents that came to the Council previously. The key changes, first of all, is that we've taken the NALC standing orders and reviewed the wording of that. As you probably know, some of the phrasing and the language and the meaning is slightly confusing, so we've improved that. And then in terms of the terms of reference, there's a few things that we've tidied up or clarified. First of all, the Mayor will sit as the deputy of each of the committees, the standing committees, the 3 standing committees. Each of the committees will have a consistent number of co-optees, up to 3 in each case. The personnel subgroup is properly constituted under these terms of reference, and also the Monks Wall subcommittee is created because initially back in February-March time, I think I spoke to Ken Chapman, the warden, who said he didn't feel the need for a committee, but I think since then things have changed and there is a feeling that a formal subcommittee is required that can report into the Heritage and Townscape Committee or into the Council as appropriate, and also have its own delegated budget of up to £5,000 in case there is an urgent need to carry out work on the reserve. So those are the main changes, and we're just asking the council to approve them at this stage.
Okay, Councillor Sabrina. Yeah.
I suggest what Mr Black said, standing orders, clause 3E, should be rewritten. If you look at it, it's not clear, because members of the public can come and speak about anything they want, can't they? It doesn't have to be on the agenda. If you look at it.
Say that again.
3E. I've just read it all and I've just lost it, but okay, members of the public may make representations, answer questions and give evidence at a meeting which they are entitled to attend in respect of the business on the agenda. It doesn't have to be the business on the agenda, does it? So I would suggest we just rewrite that a little bit, if that's okay.
I think you have to read standing orders in conjunction with the the policy for public participation, where it says so clearly what public can and can't speak about, and I want to talk about that in a minute.
Okay, but we shouldn't have a different thing in the standing orders as we have in the public participation, should we?
Councillor Sampson.
Yeah, just a really ultra minor thing, because otherwise I'm really happy about the COTTs being added and the mayor being deputy. Under section 3, so literally just a few sections up from 3E, we have 3A. And very helpfully, obviously, we've got like the blue for full council meetings and the red for committee meetings. It says 3A meetings shall not take place in premises at which time of the meeting used for supply of alcohol, and yes, unless no other premises are available, blah blah blah. It just has blue. Does that mean we can drink at committee meetings now?
You can have it in the pub.
Yeah. I've got some inventive locations to suggest.
Well, that's what you've been as Parlour used to be used for. Committee. Councillor.
Yes, thank you. I'm concerned about Standing Order 3L, which is actually put into practice. Standing Order 3L says, public involvement is central in the promotion of democratic government. Access to meetings is a right for all members of our community, both in terms of physical access to the meeting itself and wider accessibility of council proceedings. And then it says Standing Order 7, which I can also read to you, sets out the arrangements for public access to meetings. And Standing Order 7 says something very similar. Public involvement is central to the promotion of democratic government. Access to meetings is a right for all members of our community, both in terms of physical access to the meeting itself and wider accessibility of council proceedings. Now, we have only recently restarted meeting in this chamber, and there is an awkwardness about it, which I discovered once we did start meeting here, and that is that we're very often asked to use the side door to access this meeting. And the side door means that whoever comes to this meeting has to go up 2 flights of stairs. I was reprimanded, I think that's the correct word to use, because last time I came to this meeting, I found the side door impossible to open. I felt it was probably locked. It was pouring with rain. I came through the front of the Guildhall. I met somebody who is here tonight, actually, a member of the public, who was also coming to attend the Heritage and Townscape meeting at that time. And we took the lift and walked through the jury room in which there were small children. And I felt very bad about that. The problem is that anybody who needs to use a lift in order to access this room has to come through the jury room. And as I understand it, at present, because as part of the complaint that was made about me, I was told that at present the jury room is booked from Monday to Thursday. Tonight there doesn't seem to have been a problem, but I do think that it is absolutely essential that members of the public and indeed councillors are able easily to access this room. And as I told some of you, and I don't mind other people knowing, I do have a heart problem, and that does mean that every now and then I do find it impossible to get up flights of stairs, and then I need to get a lift. And I'm sure that there will be councillors in future and members of the public who will need to get up to this room. So something has to be done, and we've actually written it in the standing orders that access to meetings is a right for all members of our community, both in terms of physical access to the meeting itself and wider accessibility of council proceedings. So I think the only answer is either put in a stair lift, goodness knows how much money that would cost, to get up those stairs, or make certain that the jury room is not available for booking during the week. We meet many days of the week, between, say, 5 and 7.
Yeah, Councillor Ray.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not going to comment on the majority of it. I will comment on section 3, letter S. Unless standing orders provide otherwise, voting on the question shall be by voting cards for the councillors present. If two members request by a signed ballot. If a request of a councillor, the vote on any question shall be recorded to show whether each councillor present and voting gives his or her their vote against, for or against that question. So does that mean if, I need to clarify, does that mean if two people request a signed ballot, does that mean if I would then request for a recorded vote, because I will be requesting for a recorded vote when we do the co-option hopefully next month, does my request to have the recorded vote override the two people asking for a recorded ballot? That's what I'd like to know. Because under local, I was questioned last month, so I'll say it now. Under Local Government Act 1972, Schedule 12, Part 2, Section 13(1), unless otherwise provided by the Council's standing orders, the manner of voting at meetings of the Parish Council shall be the show of hands. And number 2 is that at the request of any member of the Council, the voting may be recorded so as to show whether each member present and voting gave his or her vote a for or a consent for that question. So I just wanted to clarify, if two people ask for a recorded vote, or a secret ballot as they're calling it, for the co-option, if I formally request that each member's vote is recorded, does my request then override the vote?
Afraid.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just in response to Councillor Anderson's point, I'm sure you'll remember, Mr. Mayor, that in the past, if the jury room's been booked, then we've tended to meet in different rooms.
Yeah.
It was a resolution at the beginning of this year that all committee meetings had to be held in this room, which is why we've been stuck with that. So if we amended where we hold the meetings to be a bit more flexible, we can meet in other rooms of the building.
What resolution was that?
Yes, thank you. Yes, I did want to support what Councillor Anderson said. I think it's extremely important that meetings should be open to everyone, whether disabled or not, and that access is guaranteed. I don't know if there are some simple solutions to the problem, such as adjusting the use of the jury room and so on. But firstly, I find the door very stiff to open, and that was where the problem started, as I understand it.
Yeah.
Secondly, I don't know if some sort of screening or whatever is possible to resolve the problem, but I do think it's a problem that we need to address. I hope the solution can be found easily, but a solution must be found.
Yeah, because we have had previous councillors coming through wheelchairs that have actually come up the lift and come through, but they haven't been a hire on the jury room on a particular. So you might have to say to the hirers, you can't hire the jury room on specific nights after 7 o'clock.
After 5 o'clock.
Councillor?
Yeah, no, just wanted to say my name. Oh, I think you said councillor. I'd just like to ask Councillor Friend, when we passed that resolution, that we would have all the meetings in here if we could, because I don't remember reading it in minutes, and I don't remember passing the resolution.
It was one of the first meetings we had.
When?
That's why we're in it.
Was it April?
After the 6 months, wasn't it? After the 6 months time period.
When we come back in here.
Oh, okay. Could I be provided with a copy of the minutes, please? Sorry, I know you've got lots of work, but I don't remember that. I remember talking about it.
It was
I
to
don't
do with
remember the
COVID, wasn't
resolution.
it? Because it was a COVID, we said we'd stay in there for 6 months and revert back here. That's the was.
Just responding to a couple of the points that Mr. Black has made and other people have made. First of all, clause 3E, I think it's a good point to say that clause in the standing order restricts public participation only to items on the agenda. And I think we should be willing to say it could be on any issue of public concern that the public can come and speak. It doesn't have to be something on the agenda, so I'd be happy to amend that if the council is agreeable. Clause 3G talks about not normally speak for more than 3 minutes. Later on in the standing orders, it talks of in item 7, it talks about at the discretion of the chair, the period for public speaking can be longer. And I think, Mr. Mayor,
I think tonight, haven't we?
we would look to you to be flexible and you know, liberal in terms of
Depends how many speakers we have as well in the council.
where people wish to speak and the issues are important. I think the other point I would make is that this will be coming back to the council in July. I think it would be not quite right to keep fiddling with these standing orders now, but to say, look, we'll take these points on board and come back in July when we can review them more comprehensively, having seen how they've bedded in over that period. I think the point made about this room, if you remember back in, I think it was February, we agreed to use the large room, the main hall for meetings, and that after 6 months we would review that. Now the resolution I sent into the Guildhall was to say that we should come back either into this room or to the jury room as appropriate. Unfortunately, when it appeared on the agenda, it only said coming back into this room. So it's halved the potential space that we can come back into. And I think certainly the jury room could be a better alternative in some situations, especially when, if you remember back in February, we talked about not sitting with our backs to the public, and that's exactly what we're doing now. So the jury room would give us more flexibility on that point. And then, sorry, Councillor Marie, you raised the point about...
sorry, Councillor, I just wanted to clarify whether, so the voting, that's all good, and I appreciate that in the standing orders. I just wanted to say, so if 2 members request a signed ballot or a secret ballot, if I request then the vote to be recorded, does my request override the secret ballot? That's what I wanted to know.
It's a good point. In these standing orders, which are based on the NALC model, everything in bold we haven't changed because it's statutory. So your guess is as good as mine what that means. I mean, the phrasing to me is ambiguous. Does it mean that we have a secret, a signed ballot is not a secret ballot? And if members then ask to see the results of that ballot, again, it's not secret. So I think we had this discussion previously about whether we can legally have a secret ballot. And I think Councillor Gray might wish to speak on that, but my reading of this is that generally speaking, voting will be by show of hands, but if 2 members request it, then there will be a signed ballot, but it's not necessarily a secret ballot if the results of that ballot are revealed.
Thank you, Councillor Wiles, I appreciate that for your time. Just wanted to say that under the meetings, the council meeting is a meeting in public. It's not a public meeting. It's us discussing the council business. It's not for the public to come in and discuss heckle, etc. Or it's purely for us to do the day-to-day stuff for the council.
Thank you. I know it sounds ambiguous, but this is the wording that's offered now document. Councillor Sampson.
Yeah, I've just had a bit of a look on Google to check out stair lift prices. So we're looking for a decent one between about 2 and 6 grand.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Brown.
Just on that, Mr. Mayor, I remember a number of years ago we looked into the heritage aspect of putting a stair lift there, and I recall prices of between £25,000 and £30,000, including listed building consent and all the associated kerfuffle with Heritage England.
I think it's very helpful to get a number of estimates, obviously, and that's what we would have to do if we were thinking of having a stair lift. But the simplest solution is either to meet in the jury room, which is what I personally would prefer. I think it would be better for the public, better for us, because we'd be better space, and I really am very nervous about catching COVID. But if we can't meet in the jury room and we continue to meet in here, then I think it is the case that we cannot let the jury room between the hours of 5 and 7, and we will therefore lose an income. I don't know how much income, it's very difficult to find out what the hourly rate is for things. So there are 2 kinds of solution, well 3 kinds of solution, and I've mentioned all 3.
Yeah, I mean, we could look at the building. We've still got that empty room. I mean, we lost the meeting room, which was an ideal space with that. And we've also got the empty room, which is the hub, which you really need.
Yes.
Those petitions come out. It's a lovely warm room, that.
Right.
So those girls could actually most probably meet in there and Councillor Heaven.
Councillor Pennington hinted at, are there no screens? It's not the best solution,
No.
but if you could walk through the door around the edge behind at least 6-foot screens, I mean, I know it's disruptive to the other people using the room, but at least you can whiz round without too much disturbance.
Yeah, we even asked the person that's leasing it whether she could stop if someone knocks, you know, say for 10 minutes to let the councillors come through, say at 10 to 7 or 20 past 6. So then they'd all be gone time we finish, wouldn't they?
Sorry, Mr. Thank you. Just one more thing. I appreciate what Councillor Anderson is saying regarding the COVID issue. But if you recall the last meetings before in the town, in the main room, in the main hall before we came into here, people were still sitting this close to each other. So it's a bit. So yeah, I believe they should remain here.
Okay. So are we happy with the revised and updated standing orders? That's what we've got proposed, haven't we?
Mr. Mayor, I propose on the basis that we find out the details regarding what I was talking about, the voting.
Okay.
Do we have, can I propose that we take the standing orders with the corrections that Councillor Wiles has just spoken about?
Yeah.
Including Councillor Mills.
Yeah, I will second that.
You second that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You're all in favour of that? Yeah. So we're good, yeah. 14. Terms of reference. To receive and consider revised terms of reference from the working group, attachment 11. Councillor Smith?
I would propose those.
Councillor?
I mean, I think I've covered this in the previous
Yeah.
item, so it's really just tidying up the issues that have been raised previously, and I'll ask the council to approve these revised terms of reference.
Councillor Friend?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The only point I'll make, I've made it a few times now, is the planning terms of reference doesn't actually state which district council would be invited. It's probably prudent to invite a Sandwich Ward district council and not a district councillor, could be anyone.
Both of them. We should invite both of them, shouldn't we?
It says district councillor, not the Sandwich Ward district councillor.
But it should be district
Councillor, please don't talk across the council chamber.
Sorry.
Alright.
Is that all right? We'll amend that there, Councillor Friend. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So are we all in favour of this then, that the terms of reference is okay. 15. Public participation. To receive and consider updated public participation policy, attachment 12.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you know, people come in to talk now and we're not allowed to speak to them, which is strange because sometimes we need to find out other things. So does 5C, neither councillors or officers are under any obligation to respond immediately or at all to comments or questions made during public participation? That means we can ask questions if we want, doesn't it? So it's changed, which is fantastic. So when I want to ask a question, you can't say no anymore. Also, we should be just not saying thank you for coming in to speak. We should be trying to answer the questions if we know anything about it. Because often, like for example, Mr. Terry Hopper came in, we just said thank you. We didn't tell him that we're going to discuss it on Wednesday. We didn't say anything about it. And it's not fair. It's like they're allowed to speak, but I mean, I'm going to say anything.
The problem is, very often we don't know what they're going to talk about, do we?
That's fine. I would have
Well, how can you get? How
no,
can you give them an answer if you don't know what they're going to talk about?
no, you can't give an answer then, but do you write to them afterwards?
It does say so.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, you are supposed to, but I often think
Yeah.
nobody gets written to. And also, I think we can say, I wanted to ask Mr. Black a question. It was a question. I wasn't going to give him the answers, but I wasn't allowed, and that is so silly.
Well, the point is, we're talking a 50-minute session, aren't we? So there's a time limit on the session. There is a 3-hour limit on the actual meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So otherwise, you're going to be extending the meetings, and in the end, you run out of time to finish the minute.
Is that by law, the 3 hour limit?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, well, I think I could ask a question and we can still have 3 hours.
Because
I think we're supposed to be open and transparent.
well,
And
sometimes
if people bring a problem, we're supposed to try and.
the trouble is, sometimes you get a councillor here, you ask them a question, something completely different, and they haven't got the answer at that time. So that's why I always say, ask the councillors after the meetings.
But we might want clarification, or I might have known the answer. You might have known the answer. But what I'm saying is, if we pass this, we will be allowed to speak.
I should go against that then. Councillor Murray.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I agree with you. I'm afraid there's been a couple of times that I feel that a pre-question or pre-speech should be given to the council before they actually do speak. So the councillors, if it's directed at certain councillors, so they can find out their information and get the information for them to give to the person after the meeting.
That's right.
The other thing is that there's been a couple of times where someone's put in a request to speak and then put the head of finance, but then spoke about something totally different. 9 times out of 10, it's mostly about the chief executive and our role within the council.
That's right.
So I feel that we need to know the ins and outs of what they're going to say, so the council or the councillors or the individual councillor can then, instead of being off the cuff, off the bat, we've kind of instructed what we're speaking about.
Because when it comes, it just says councillors' reports, doesn't it?
Mr. Mayor, I'm totally against that because I think that's against, I don't know the law, Dean Marie, but it's totally against freedom of speech. You shouldn't even have to say what
This
you're
isn't
coming
a
to talk
debating
about.
society. This is not a debating room. This is a council meeting.
Yes,
this
and
is
I'm
not
giving my
this is not a debate. We
What
don't.
do you mean it's not a debate?
Well, if someone comes here and gives a report, then you start asking questions. You're debating their report, aren't you?
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the fact that people that want to speak have to give their what they want to say beforehand. Because I know of occasions where people have given their thing that they want to say and they've been denied access to speak. And I won't comment on that.
I hope that wasn't under me.
It was under you, yeah.
Was it?
Last time.
Well, I don't always get informed of who wants to speak, but I did inform Councillor Black did inform me today that he wanted to speak, and I made sure that he spoke.
Yeah, no, but we shouldn't be saying you have to say what you're going to speak about. And we definitely shouldn't have people coming and showing us what their speech is first.
Well, they can get an answer then, can't they?
But they won't get an answer. You just say thank you.
No.
Yes.
They can have instead of. If they tell us 3 days before what they want to speak about, we can research their thing and give them after they spoke, and they can have a written reply, can't they?
One would hope so.
Just a minute, Councillor Wiles.
Yeah, we did, in the working group, going back to the previous item, we did propose that the speaking slot be 30 minutes, with up to 5 minutes per speaker, but the working group eventually decided against that.
Yes, ma'am.
It is something we can revisit in the future, but I think there's enough in the standing orders to say you, Mr. Mayor, have discretion if you feel that an issue is important and relevant and so on. And also I think we should be gracious enough to respond to members of the public, to the taxpayers who make presentations, and tell them, thank them and tell them what we're going to do.
They'll get an answer.
And when they'll get an answer to that
Thank you.
presentation.
I would like to raise 2 issues on this. Firstly, I think at the moment, people talking are allowed to choose what subject they talk about. There's no restriction on it. This new arrangement says that it either has their subject they talk about either has to be a matter on the agenda, or it has to be a matter which is approved by the officers. Now, I think it is quite wrong that the officers should have the right to decide whether somebody can speak or anything. If that is going to be in the policy, then we must know on what criteria the officers are going to decide whether an item is suitable to be spoken on or not. And I think we should remain as it is at the moment, where people, it's the public's right to speak, it's the public's 15 minutes, they should be allowed to speak on whatever topic they want. My second point is that I do not understand this necessity to have to give notice before they speak. I've looked into the rules of most of the local councils, parish councils and town councils in this vicinity, and if I'm wrong, I'm happy to be corrected. I can't find any where they say that notice has to be given prior to speaking. I have here Deal Town Council's policy, which is typical of most of the councils here, and what it says is, before the start of the meeting, a person wishing to speak should indicate to the chairman or the town clerk their desire to speak and the item they wish to speak on. Now, I cannot see why councils need 3 days' notice, and there is also something wrong with this policy in terms of the notice, because it says notice has to be given before 9 o'clock on the Wednesday before the meeting, and you are only allowed to speak on items on the agenda, but the agenda is never published until late in the afternoon on the Wednesday before the meeting, which is too late for anybody to give any notice. So unless people guess what's on the agenda, they're going to find themselves unable to speak. I would also be interested to Councillor Pennington to tell us how they dealt with this at Westgate, because I don't believe they require 3 days notice to be given.
Yeah. I think the problem is we've had speakers and they spoke monthly on the same subject, so if they speak once at 1 month, that should be sufficient rather than come back 2 or 3 times, listening to the same problems. That is why I think that one of the persons was asked to change the subject they wish to speak on.
I agree. I think it's quite right that people shouldn't be able to come back month after month after month on the same topic, and maybe it should be written in that they can only speak once on that particular topic.
Unless they...
Thank you, Chair. Yes, in reply to a specific question about what we did in Westgate. Firstly, we were aware of this problem that if you require people only to speak to points on the agenda, they have to know what the agenda is. And we had, in fact, a later deadline. The agenda came out on Wednesday afternoon, and members of the public were required to notify to the clerk by, I think it was 2 o'clock on Friday, that they wished to speak. So there's still some coherence in that system. I mean, I think firstly, a lot of these issues, one has to leave to the chair's discretion to see whether there is a long list of people wishing to speak. I think, I mean, my own first impressions are that people have been very disciplined in being brief, speaking to the council, because my own experience is that people can talk for a long time. Secondly, I think it's very important that people who are giving up their evening sometimes come here in the pouring rain and have the guts to stand up and speak to us all, should at least be thanked and given some indication of what the follow-up to is given to the points that they made. I regard that as a normal courtesy, and I would certainly hope that we can find some way of doing that. Well, just a couple of comments. In Westgate, we did set up a Saturday morning surgery once a month, where 2 counsellors would sit, and for 2 hours, members of the public could just come and say if they had a problem, and it could be any sort of problem. But part of the aim of the exercise was to provide a human face that people could come and talk to and just share a problem with, whether it was a problem with the neighbours or a planning application or whatever. The second is, I know of other councils where they have allocated some time with a special meeting to have members of the public sharing views. Thank you.
Councillor Walsh, did you want to speak? No. Councillor Simpson.
Yeah, it's I can see where a lot of people are coming from. So Councillor Siprikaya, Councillor Marie, yourself, Mr. Mayor, in terms of, say, a member of the public raising something. So Mr. Hopper, about the land next to the Technology School and Leisure Centre. I'd love to talk more about that. But of course, we're restricted to what's on the agenda. So if people do want to come and speak to us about something, they get in touch with me first, or any other councillor in this room. We can put it on the agenda. In that case, we can discuss it more. So if anybody, member of the public or otherwise, has something they're going to be speaking about and they want it on the agenda, I'm happy to put it on there.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Just one more thing. I don't mean to sound harsh to Councillor Penson, but we're sandwiches. We're not Rye, we're not Dill, we're not Westgate, we're sandwiches. It's been running. We've had this terms of reference for a few years now, and it's worked quite well. I've spoken in public. We were before I was a councillor. So the only thing I would like to suggest, if possible, is Section 5, letter C. Maybe we can change that to the discretion of the mayor or the discretion of the chairman to allow questions to be spoken about. If the chair says no, then it's a no. If the chair says yes, we can speak about or ask 1 or 2 questions. Then that would be my recommendation.
Can I suggest that we don't put discretion for anybody, that you are allowed to come and talk about what you want? And the reason that person came every week to talk about something, and you know this, is that nobody ever answered her. She was being tenacious. She just kept coming back. Nobody answered her from the office. Nobody ever gets answered. So all I wanted to say was we could have just said, thank you, Mr. Hopper, come along on Wednesday because we're going to discuss this.
Is he coming Wednesday?
I don't know, Mr. Hopper, are you coming Wednesday?
We are.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we could have said that.
So, Councillor Marie would like to amend item C.
So, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to propose that we go ahead with this on the basis that Section 5, letter C, is changed to the discretion of the chair. It's purely because of the business that we do. So sometimes we can have a really, really long agenda and it can take a lot of time. If people were having questions, we could be there a good 45 minutes answering questions. So that's what I say. I would like to make a suggestion that 5C is changed to the discretion of the chair.
I can't find 5C.
The one you were talking about.
Councillor.
Yes, I'm very confused because I thought we'd moved on from talking about the standing orders, which I think is what Councillor Marie is referring to, because I thought we were now talking about the protocol for public participation.
We are, that's why I'm getting confused.
And that doesn't seem to have a 5C.
Under the terms of reference, bear with me.
We're not on terms of reference.
So the policies and procedures for public participation.
Okay, yeah.
Section 5, letter C.
Okay.
You read it out, Councillor Supervisor, for the beginning. Neither councillors nor officers are under any obligation to respond immediately or at all comments and questions made during the public participation. You're talking about asking questions at the end of the person speaking. I reckon that should be given down to the discretion of the chair. That's my recommendation.
I don't think so. That was ages ago I said that anyway. But I don't.
It's the same debate though, Councillor.
We'll say that to Mr. Marie then.
No, we are talking about. That's what we're talking about. You raised it at the very start.
Yes,
and
we talked
you
about
talked
it.
about 5, 6. Can you please stand up? Please stand up.
I haven't got anything to say.
Councillor Gray.
I would agree with Councillor Murray on this.
Yeah.
That we move that there should be that amendment. But I also think if this policy document is going to be approved, you've got to change the notice period. You've got to shorten it so that the notice period has to be given after the agenda has been published. So I would suggest that we should adopt what Westgate did and say that the notice should be given by, say, no later than Friday before the meeting on Monday.
I would agree with that,
Yeah.
Mr Mayor.
So is everyone happy with this part of the two, with the two? Councillor Wild, do you understand that?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
There's just another slight thing, which is that we've just talked about you responding verbally to the speaker at the time they finish their speech, but 5C then seems to contradict that because it says neither councillors nor officers
that's right.
are under any obligation to respond. We've just agreed that we will respond and give some kind of promise about writing a letter or other action. So I think there's a few kind of, we haven't seen this document before, I think there's a few internal contradictions within it.
Yeah,
Perhaps we need to come back to the next meeting and tidy up a bit. Otherwise we're agreeing something that's not quite right.
Mr Mayor, in that case, can we defer this until the next meeting? That'd be the
Mr
best
Mayor, I
idea.
had my hand up and he called
Yeah,
me again.
okay. Sorry.
I'd just like to say that if you're under no obligation to do something, you may do it.
Yeah.
So we will be able to ask them questions. I won't ask them questions for hours, just if I wanted to know something.
So we had a proposal now to defer this to the next meeting.
Who wrote?
We've got a proposal from a second. Are we all in favour this item is deferred to the next meeting?
Can I just ask, who wrote this? No, they didn't.
Well, a lot of it is from
No, it's not.
standing orders, isn't it?
No, but this. Did you write it, the Standing Orders Group?
No.
No.
No, so.
No.
So.
I don't know.
I presume it was written by the Chief Executive.
Yeah, I think that, no.
With supporting documents of NALC as well on here.
Yeah, I thought it was all cut out of NALC.
Yeah,
Yeah, but NALC's not always great.
He knows the answer. Document or something else.
Well, if he passes a note to a councillor, the councillor can speak.
Sorry, Mr Mayor, we've just agreed
defer.
the terms of reference for council and committees whereby we can say if there is a member of the public who has a particular knowledge of something, they can be invited to contribute to aid the meeting in its decision making.
Okay,
Mr
Mr.
Black
Black
knows the answer.
Okay, Mr. Black knows the answer.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm happy to sit down with any councillors to try to make sure that both the public participation policy and the standing orders do mesh together better. I would say that a lot of the public participation policy is based upon NALC, but there are tweaks that Sandwich has put in for, no doubt, good reasons. But I am prepared to come and spend some time to try to pull this together, because you will have seen from my written commentary that I've actually tried to look at all of the angles, but that is your discretion.
Okay, okay.
It's a very quick one, and I won't speak to Mr. Black. But can we just say that the councillors didn't write these things?
But now we just said it's
No, yes, now might have written it, but we decided before that we didn't like the NALC one, and we were going to have a working group.
We had the working group, and then now it's been.
Can we
just carry on?
We move to a vote.
Yeah, can we defer this to the next meeting so these tweaks can take place? Okay. Item 16, Maddox bequest. To receive and consider the content of a proposed draft letter relating to Miss Maddox's bequest, attachment 13. Are you happy with the Councillor Sampson?
Yeah, if nobody's got anything to add to it, if we send it.
Second.
Yes, you're all in favour of the letter to be sent? Thank you. Item 17, to receive a verbal update from Councillor Heaven, Chair of the Sandwich Waterways Working Group, attachment 14.
Yes, to update on the last written version, I can now confirm that myself, councillors Graham, P. Carter and Danielle Siverkaya will be the councillors on that working group. Also co-opted will be Peter Ashford of the Sandwich Environmental Conservation Group, who's had a particular interest in the waterways around Sandwich. And also agreed is Carol George, a member of Sandwich and Bloom and the town team, who has also had an interest in the concern about the state of the waterways for some time. I'll be arranging the first meeting as soon as possible. One or two of those people are away. I don't want to prejudge or preempt decisions, but I anticipate and hope that we should prepare a report with proposals by February, March time. And I imagine the report will cover the history of the waterways, the current problems for the town, which include stagnation, covering of weed, lack of oxygen, and mosquitoes. And on the last point, I'm grateful for the talk that at least the councillors had on the issue of mosquitoes in the town just before this meeting. I would emphasise, of course, that Sandwich Town Council has no responsibility or powers to deal with the issues presented by our waterways, but of course, ironically perhaps, it's the members of the public of this town who suffer most from the problems and disadvantages. So I would hope that at very least Sandwich Town Council can reflect local concerns and can use what pressure we can to get solutions.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Friend?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just out of interest, who agreed to the composition of that committee? I don't remember seeing an agenda item.
I think that's what volunteers at the last meeting.
Yes, I asked for volunteers. I agreed as the chair, but obviously if you would like the town council to formally approve those, I would put those names forward.
It's on the agenda.
Yep, yeah, we can't do that tonight, it's just a verbal update, isn't it? Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, does that mean that we can't meet until the whole council says that we can meet?
Yeah.
That's jolly ridiculous.
So the terms are, Mr. Mayor, that if they want to set up a working group, it has to go to full council, which will be next month, because it's not on this agenda. So and then they can start meeting.
Yet more deliberate attempts to delay
Exactly.
good news by this council. I propose...
Point of order, Mr. Mayor. You know, abiding by the law and standing orders is not an attempt to delay. It's to make sure that we're acting.
Can we just sit down, please? We've got one speaker.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to call...
You could have informal meetings, Councillor, haven't you?
We'll have an informal meeting of those people named and formally put the list of names to the December meeting. But hopefully things will be underway by then.
It's a shame we weren't guided by the CEO. Never mind. Okay. Item 18, Tourist Information Working Group. To receive and consider a report from Councillor Wiles, Chair of the Tourist Information Working Group, attachment 15.
Plan B. So the council has agreed that this working group be set up, and I'm putting forward on this report proposed membership of that working group. So we've got 4 co-optees who've agreed to stand. As you probably know, working groups can have up to 5 councillors and up to 4 co-optees, or up to 9 members in total. The co-optees who've agreed to join this working group are people you probably know: Steve Lazar, Sandwich Events, Tony Broom, Shepherd Neame, Bell Hotel, Jane Gill, who's the owner of Priory Interiors, and representing retailers, and Richard Ralph from the town team. And then we have 6 councillors who've nominated themselves to this group. We have 5 places for councillors.
Yeah.
So rather than making myself even more unpopular, I thought I'd ask this council meeting to decide the 5 councillor names that should go forward onto the working group.
Councillor Murray.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, the email chain that was going through last couple of weeks, I've been having a detailed conversation with Councillor Wells and Councillor Anderson regarding my expertise in events and also within the travel industry because I'm a coach driver. So we've been talking about getting a coach documentation to send to coach companies. So I'd wish to remain on that committee if possible.
Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Just to let you know, I had a phone call from Councillor Fox earlier today, and she wants to remain as a nominee, as do I.
Councillor Sanderson.
So yeah, really happy this has gone ahead, and again we've got the list, and obviously I can decide. I don't really have any preferences either way, apart from obviously to commend several of the co-op teams with their good local knowledge. The only thing I would say, because I know there's been a good push to try and reduce bureaucracy, why do we have it as a working group which is reporting to Heritage and Townscape? Why doesn't it be its own committee like it used to be? Because then it can report straight to council. We may end up just waiting too long, and tourism is really important.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's been pointed out before that this is not going to be a tourism working group. It's specifically just to discuss the Tourist Information Centre.
I don't think it is. I think of the whole tourism structure. I think, so, but it's,
I'm willing to fall on my sword and not be a member of
okay,
the working group.
okay,
That solves that problem.
okay, oh, so, okay, Councillor Anderson, thank you for that. So we've got the 5, okay?
So if you're happy to agree the 5 names,
Yeah.
Councillor Anderson coming off that list, then we
Yeah.
can agree that tonight and start meeting very shortly.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
Yeah, happy to second that.
Okay.
And I'd just say I think Councillor Marie's contribution would be very valuable on that in terms of we do need to reach out to coach companies.
Yeah, I did talk to you about that, didn't I? I did talk to you
Yeah.
about your expertise, your area, because it's quite important. The coach companies are coming in and they're not really doing much, they're just dropping people in 10 minutes or half hour.
I believe you've been on one of my coaches, I think. But you know where it goes.
Okay, thank you for that.
We vote?
Yeah, all in favour of this goes ahead there.
We've got 2 things to vote on. Which one are we voting on? The 5 councillors?
Yeah, the 5 councillors and trustees, haven't we? Yeah. Yeah, so we can decide to vote on the 5 councillors first, okay? And then, okay, I think that's carried. Then 2, approve the 4 non-councillor co-op teams. Yeah, yeah, okay, good. Item 19, Disability Access Strategy Working Group, drop curb. To receive and consider a request from Councillor Anderson regarding the longevity of the Disability Access Strategy Working Group, attachment 16. Councillor Anderson.
Can I just speak?
Yeah.
This actually has nothing to do with a dropped curb. It's about the lifetime of this particular working group, which was set up before the council passed all the terms of reference for working groups. It was first established in June or July 2021 and chaired by Councillor Tony Groom. But he resigned in November 2021 and I became chair after being elected to this council on February 28th, 2022. And there is provision within the terms of reference for working groups that there can be some working groups that are dealing with issues which are long-term, and the long-term nature of the issue, and I'm reading from the working group terms of reference, The long-term nature of the issue has to be established from the outset by the body that sets up the working group. So what I'm asking for is a bit of tidying up. And I say in this document, there's no doubt that the improvement of accessibility in Sandwich is a long-term issue and involves many alterations to the urban fabric of the town, all of which take considerable time to put in place, particularly given the number of authorities involved. There is strong justification for the Disability Access Strategy Working Group being an exception to the general terms of reference for working groups. Moreover, the terms of reference themselves allow for such exceptions. So my recommendation is that the Council resolve that the Disability Access Strategy Working Group is working on a long-term issue and should continue its work until further notice.
Okay. Councillor.
Second.
Yeah. You all in favour of the disability access group? Okay. Thank you. Item 20, date of next meeting. Wednesday the 30th of November at 7 o'clock within the Guildhall Hall.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. It's the 19th, isn't it? Not the 30th.
Well, I've got Wednesday. No, what's got Wednesday? That's why I looked at that.
Oh, sorry. Apologies, that's my bad.
Yeah, it's a